Good morning. Can't really say good afternoon unless you're in Europe, but I will say good part of the day, folks. Welcome to the largest and fastest growing large-scale Scrum of New York City, having gone global and viral for a while now. Today we have our one of our scheduled sessions, and I'm gonna introduce our speaker and his topic. He will introduce his own topic actually in a few seconds. But before I do that, I want to welcome you to the event and also remind you that there are other events coming up. And as we mentioned, we already tried this last month. We're going to be trying to go back to in person here in New York City by combining the Zoom channel so that remote people can join as well as people on site. So please check out the upcoming events and share with your colleagues. Two more things. This presentation, and I'll be sharing the links, will be recorded and posted here on the site that I have available for everyone. David, you don't mind me. David Nielsen is going to be our speaker. You don't mind us to be recording this and posting it publicly, true?
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
That's good. Okay. And last but not least, those of you that are in New York City or in the nearby region, please be mindful that in November, the co-founder of Large Scale Scrum, Craig Larman, will be here. He will be teaching the public course for executives, but also he has 4 hours to give, a half a day to give on the day prior to the training he will be giving. And this would be for any large or mid-size or even a small company that wants to host an internal private executives workshop. And the write-up of this is here on Craig's site. I'll be sharing the links as well. That being said, let me turn over to the main event, to today's event. It is the main topic. David Nielsen is my good friend and colleague. He is also one of very few certified LeSS coaches. He will be sharing with us some of the LeSS experiments he has been a part of as a coach and consultant at the company. It's a small product company, and David will give more information. He'll probably correct me as well if it has been growing the company and maybe no longer small. All right, so without any further ado, I'm going to pass this on to David. David, let me stop sharing so you can start sharing, and the floor is yours. So once again, David Nielsen, someone who really understands large-scale Scrum and knows how to coach it. So David, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Gene. Can everyone see my screen with the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So yeah, welcome everybody. My name is David Nielsen. I wanted to let you all know, like, I love joining Gene's meetups because I see all these different presentations and they help me like think differently about solving problems. I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm always trying to learn more. So like that's why I joined Gene's meetup. So hopefully, this presentation inspires you to maybe think differently or try something differently where you work. So hopefully you get something out of it that I usually get out of joining these meetups. So yeah, so yeah, go ahead, Gene.
No, I was gonna say thank you. Thank you for acknowledging this
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
people that
Yeah,
make it great. Yeah.
Yeah, your community is awesome. So I really appreciate all your time. Yeah, so this is the presentation on the Deep Scribe product startup company using LeSS experiments, and we'll go through some of the results and feedback from the teams. All right, so we're going to start off with a pop quiz just to get everybody energized and engaged. It's called Chat Storm. So you, oh my God, my dogs are barking in the background. Sorry. So we'll go through a few pop quiz questions. Put the answers in the chat if you think you know the answer. So number one, what are we inspecting or adapting at this Scrum event? The sprint review. See if anyone knows the answer to this one, looking at the chat. Gene says product. deliverables from the sprint, product goal. These are all good answers. Anyone else? Yeah, I would, what do you think, Gene? I think these are all great answers.
Sorry, I was
All right,
reading. Yeah, I
well,
think they were in line. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's
I like product goal too. Yeah, like that's, you know, that like checking up on our progress toward this product goal. That's awesome. All right, let's go to the next one. The sprint retrospective. So same question for all 4 events. So how about for the sprint retrospective? What are we inspecting or adapting at this Scrum event? Anyone know? See if the community knows this one. The last sprint from the team's perspective, no stakeholders, process, ongoing improvement. Yeah. Process, team level impediments, and overall retro organizational issues. Awesome. Yeah, these are great answers. Yep. Collaboration. Yep. Absolutely. Awesome. Good job. All right. Number 3, what are we inspecting or adapting at this Scrum event? The daily Scrum. Elena says the sprinkle. Excellent. Daily plan towards sprinkle. Yep, absolutely. Excellent. Current team strategy. Lindsay says current team strategy toward the sprinkle. Excellent. Oh, these are great answers. Okay, Gene, you got a really smart, well-read community. Excellent. Okay, let's do the last one here. What are we inspecting or adapting at this Scrum event? The sprint planning. This one's maybe a little bit tougher. Sprinkle question mark, commitment from Elena. Gene's like, I'm innocent here, okay? Yeah, I mean, you know, we're inspecting, you know, essentially like what is our capacity for the next sprint? We're adapting our new plan for what we're going to accomplish next, right? So all all 4 of the Scrum events are these inspect and adapt. It's a cadence of inspect and adapt events that help us create transparency, right? So there's a Scrum analogy I'd like to share with you, and essentially Scrum is a mirror, right? It's holding up a mirror to your organization so they can look at themselves, they can look at their product, they can look at their process on a daily basis, on a sprint basis. And if when you look at a mirror in the morning, you're getting ready, maybe this morning, you know, or when I got up this morning, I go in the mirror and I look at and I see my shirt's on backwards, right? Or maybe you look in the mirror and your makeup's, you know, kind of messed up or something like that. Ask yourself, does the mirror turn your shirt inside out for you, or does it fix your makeup? No, it doesn't. So blaming these issues on the mirror doesn't actually like fix the problem. Like the mirror isn't going to do that for you. You have to have the willpower to take that feedback, right, and go and fix the problems yourselves, right? And exactly. So the message of the pop quiz and the analogy, Scrum doesn't fix your problems, it exposes them, right? And that's a quote from Ron Jeffries. Ron Jeffries, signed the Agile Manifesto. He was like the original XP coach. So some wise words from Ron Jeffries to start off. And I like to I use this analogy all the time at work, at wherever I go to work, whenever we're talking about Scrum or anything like that, like especially with people that are new and unfamiliar to it, because a lot of folks like to think that it's a silver bullet, it'll fix your problems. It really doesn't. It exposes them, right? All right, cool. So just contents of this presentation. We just went through the pop quiz. Nice job on that. Thanks for your participation, engagement. I'll do a quick background on myself real quick and a quick about DeepScribe. Go through some of the experiments, less experiments at the startup company. This is a startup company in Silicon Valley. We'll talk about a team self-design workshop and system optimization goal workshop, and some of the results that came from that. As you can see on the screen, one of the results is we gained a whole product focus for feature teams and a single product backlog and a single product owner for that. Alignment with business OKRs, business objectives, which we're using OKRs. So we'll take a look at the alignments gained there and take a look at the OKR scoreboard experiment that we're starting. We'll also take a look at the LeSS events that we have set up right now and a survey from the engineers on their feedback. So it's like a Google form thing. So we'll take a look and see what people said. And then we'll also take a look at the community as a practice and component mentors that we have starting up. We just started up a few weeks ago. A lot of this is in progress. This is raw. I've never given this presentation before, by the way, so bear with me. I just put this together for Gene's community here. All right, so quick about me. You can kind of see my professional experiences on the screen, but I'm from Minnesota. I'm turning 36 this year. A lot of people ask questions about these pillows that I have behind me. I have two dogs, actually, Shiba Inu and a Black Lab German Shepherd. And they're just fun pillows that I like to put up behind me to keep things fun and interesting and asking questions. But yeah, I've been in the LeSS space for about 3 years, Scrum Master for 6 years, experimented with LeSS at 3 companies, US Bank, Ceridian, and now DeepScribe. Previous experience as a Nexus Scrum Master, quite a while in SAFe as a release train engineer and Scrum Master. And waterfall projects as a business analyst in QA. About DeepScribe, co-founders Akhilesh and Matt, 2 great guys to work for, located in San Francisco. Essentially, what this product is it allows doctors to open up their iPad or iPhone, have it. Our app, which is installed on their phone from the App Store, listening and recording the conversation between their patients. It goes through a transcription engine, and then our AI, highlights, summarizes, and produces fully HIPAA-compliant SOAP notes, which then a medical scribe will review and check off to make sure it doesn't say anything goofy. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it's pretty spot on. It's pretty cool. It saves doctors 3 to 4 hours a day. They can go into this app, see all of their patients in a list, whether it's on the web app or on their phone app, and look at the recordings or take recordings right then and there. So it integrates with their EHR system, allowing doctors to free up time either for their family, or they can take in more patients. So it saves a lot of money for them, or they can make more money by using this app. Our current product development structure looks like this. So currently what we have in blue there, and then kind of what we're aiming to grow. Now this job, we would have had all of these boxes blue right now, but the job market is, it's tough. There's a lot, there's a lot of great opportunities out there across the board. I think now there's some layoffs happening. There's probably more people joining looking for jobs. So I just wanted to let you know we are hiring though. We're hiring aggressively. If you know people in AI, NLP, software development, product, customer success, all that stuff we're hiring. So we have 2 engineering scrum teams, 1 AI scrum team. We're currently building out another AI scrum team. And also we're going to be running an experiment with an AI and engineering scrum team. Also, let me just take a drink of water. We have 1 product owner for all of this work and 1 product backlog. Some of the work some of the product deliverables between what we found is that between engineering and AI, because they can have a common data model and they could kind of work independently. A lot of the AI's work is research based. It's very difficult to guess whether they're going to be able to, produce something within a sprint. So it's more about like how many inputs can we put into the model within a sprint, and like you like once you put a few inputs in, then you realize, oh, okay, let's try all like these 40 different inputs, and then one of those will work, and then like, oh, we'll try these 12. It's very you're kind of like moving through the dark constantly with this stuff, and like finding things. So it's a little bit of a different flavor, but we are finding that it would be useful from AI and engineering's perspective to pilot a team where we have AI and engineering that are working on this data model more continuously. But this data model does allow engineering and AI to kind of work separately as long as they agree on what that is. But any questions so far from anybody? I do like questions. If you want to ask anything that's on topic or on the screen, go for it. Cool. All right. So, so this next section is talking about team self-design and system optimization goal. So essentially when I joined, there was 1 giant team of like, I think we had 12 engineers, and then we had another team of 5 NLP and AI engineers. This was focused on engineering, so we needed to split from 1 team into 2 and split off 2 more, as you saw in the diagram, for total 4. We were hoping to do that very soon, but hiring has been slow. It's actually picking up now. We've just hired 5 people in the last 2 weeks, so that's great. Also, product definition and system optimization goal were undefined, which was a bit hairy, right? It's if you don't have that defined when you're splitting teams, it's like, what? My dog is Obi's barking like crazy in the background. Hopefully you can't hear that. The end results of this workshop, which I'm going to show you in a minute what it looked like, was the facilitating of the workshop allowed developers and stakeholders to discuss and align on product definition, their optimization goal for a product, and team composition. We arrived at a single product definition, single product backlog, single product owner, and feature teams. So I'll show you what that looked like. So I chose to put this into Miro. So this is our self-design workshop. And what I wanted to make sure was that the company and the engineering teams first aligned on like, what are we optimizing for before we like pick who's going to be on which team and all that, because there's different ideas like, let's have 1 team work on iOS features and the other team works on the Squat feature. So Squat is a Scribe web app. It's just, with the Scribes view and on the back end to kind of like check to make sure the AI notes look correct. So I offered that as an option, which is specialization or whole product focus and organizational adaptiveness, right? And that what that looks like, instead of having team backlogs for each team, is that we have a product backlog, right? And that's what Scrum and LeSS promotes. But I didn't want to force that onto people. I wanted people to really, choose their destiny, own their own conclusions. So I took them through this thought exercise, and this is the same thought exercise that Craig Larman shared in my CLP course 3 years ago, and it seems to be a great starting block, in my opinion. And that is essentially looking at the number of backlogs. How does the number of backlogs or lists in our organization relate to the percent total of product backlog items that a team knows well, right? And of course, if you bifurcate the product backlog into team backlogs, that percentage goes down. So it'd be like 33%, 33%, 33% instead of 100%, right? And of course, and I didn't have these arrows here. I asked them how do you feel like these factors, influence each other, right? Or these variables, right? So this was kind of blank. So I drew the arrows, and we realized that this actually increases our adaptiveness of teams to change direction at a global level, right? Also, percent of items worked on each sprint that are of the highest value at a global level, right? So if you decrease the number of backlogs or lists, you increase the percent total or percent of items worked on each sprint that are of the highest value at a global level, and of course increase the adaptiveness, right? So that was the question. Do we want to increase this factor? Is this what we want to optimize for, or do we want to optimize for specialization? We had a little brainstorming session where the team members and product folks and the CEO and everybody was there, kind of like listed out what are the pros and cons of each of these different models, right? So that was kind of the beginning of this workshop, and then I asked them to vote which ones, which path we wanted to go down, right? Choose your own destiny. Some of the people moved their their sticky notes down, so there's a few people missing, but ultimately everyone settled on org adaptiveness and whole product focus. So yeah, then essentially kind of my philosophy is don't force teams to split. Help them to articulate why or when it would be a good time to split. What kind of conditions would there be? And then, how often do we need to check up on whether those conditions are there? Then they kind of, again, they're owning their own conclusion, like, oh yeah, maybe we do need to split. So the people wrote these kind of reasons why a team might need to split, and then I asked them to vote. Well, given these reasons that you mentioned above, do we need to split into two teams now? And then they voted. They all eventually it was kind of like a tie for a little while, and then people started moving over to yes. So that was interesting. It's a very personal thing when you're working in a team. It's very personal. And splitting teams, it really shouldn't be like a top-down decision. It should really be a team decision. That's my philosophy anyways. Yeah, so then we kind of came up with, like, then the next question was like, what's our onboarding strategy going to be? And the two kind of main models here to pick from, that the teams had to pick from, was either having an onboarding team and then like a team that's kind of like heads down in the work, but the onboarding team is essentially responsible for ensuring that the onboarding material is in good order, that the new team members are able to hit the ground running. So there's like kind of some forgiveness if they're not always super productive when they have new team members join. That it's like, yeah, their goal is to make sure these team members are able to ramp up as quickly as possible. And the other model was more of a traditional model, in my opinion. The responsibility of onboarding new team members is shared. This is just an experiment. We're running it. We've just started it. And I don't really have a whole lot of feedback on which model, the teams like the most. So we want to go through a few iterations of this, and maybe I'll have some more information for you at a future point. Yeah. So that was the team self-design workshop. Did anybody have any questions about that? Cool. Yeah. So again,
Hey, David, I have one if you don't mind. I mean, just understanding the dynamic of what a self-design workshop is. Like, how did you ensure that the managers, I know the company is relatively small and there aren't that many people, in a managerial position, but how did you ensure that the managers they were not forcing their views upon people and allowed people to self-organize and self-design into teams?
Oh, that's a fantastic question, Gene. Thanks for asking that. So this was they all voted so they moved their sticky notes over to one of these two. Either one team is responsible, this model for onboarding, or this model, like all teams share responsibility. And then they moved their sticky notes into the teams that they wanted to be on. So if they wanted to be on the onboarding team, they moved their sticky note onto one of the slots in the onboarding team. So the manager didn't really have any influence about the team composition.
Okay, thank you. So it was autonomous. They did it on their own, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And another thing that we used was this team skills matrix. So some of you may be familiar with something like this. And we basically asked all the team members to kind of rate themselves on, well, first we asked them to identify what are like the top skills that we need to produce, this product, and then, rate themselves, which is a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. Some of the people reported they didn't like this activity, and so there's some egos there at play, and it's like, well, I think I'm okay at it, but maybe someone else doesn't think I'm good, or maybe I don't think I'm that great, but really I am, and all these different things. But in the end, they all really liked this. Like, it really helped them because people think in numbers and math and things like that, so they were able to kind of grapple onto that. So this is one dimension of it.
Mhm.
Um,
By the way,
and then
there
it
was a
kind of,
question in the queue. Notice,
yeah.
pick it up. Yeah.
Go ahead. Does anyone want to come off mute and ask the question?
Hey, David, I have a question.
Yeah.
I feel like there's always this concern with numbers, right? With our
Yeah.
engineers, start, any sort of metric, any kind of number, right?
Yeah.
It's easy for it to get appropriated for other things, right? And not serve its purpose. So how did you address that? Or has that, maybe it's the company culture, that's not an issue? Just curious.
Yeah, so these numbers, first of all, the VP of engineering that all the engineers report to was he's a very supportive person. He doesn't believe in using numbers like this against folks. Doesn't like tracking velocity for judging performance. Doesn't, he's pretty cool about that. So I don't know, I guess it's the culture that allowed this. This might not work at other cultures, though. This might be kind of toxic, to be honest. Yeah. You got to kind of read your situation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but they liked seeing like, oh, like what's the delta here between our teams? I'm like, oh, well, what if one person moved over to the other team? Because like what ended up happening is the first iteration of this, like we had too many senior developers on Orion and not enough senior well, there's a couple, but it was just very lopsided in skill sets. So we were finding that like, Orion was always tackling the sprinkle, and Atlas was kind of like on the tertiary of it. So ultimately we used that to help rebalance the teams, but also, I reminded them the other kind of, perspective is like, do you want to be on the onboarding team? Do you like, onboarding new people? Like maybe you don't like doing that, right? So we had a little bit of a reshuffle with two people, one person from Ryan joined Atlas joined Ryan. That's kind of cool. Awesome. Any other questions before I move on? Awesome, cool. So we'll keep going here. Looks like I got 25 minutes left, so I'll keep my eye on the clock. Alignment with business objectives. So we use OKRs at Deep Scribe. And these are our two top OKRs for product and engineering: reducing dependency on highly trained scribes to produce high quality notes, and increase product development capacity. I have seen I've been seeing OKRs used at like pretty much every place I work at. Most of them get it wrong. These aren't perfect. These are our first iteration of OKRs, but they're a start, right? But as a Scrum Master, I'm trying to find, like, however you want to write OKRs, I'm looking for the product goal. I want to get everybody on the same page about what's our next product goal, so we can start crafting good sprint goals and get the team focused around that, right? That's my objective. Yeah, so all of our teams are responsible for these OKRs. And what ended up happening is that, because of the hiring, the slowness in hiring and all that, which is picking up finally, thank God. But we didn't have capacity to do both of these, or work on both of these key results that we felt would accomplish this objective. So it came down to a priority decision. Our CEO kind of picked 100% adoption of the Scribe web app, which allows us to bring on more EHR orgs onto this new system, right? And that's going to help grow our business and improve our MRR and all that great stuff. So we kind of deprioritized the other one. What helped us actually focus both of the teams onto this key result of this product goal was the multi-team product backlog refinement, multi-team design that large-scale Scrum suggests trying out. So the switching costs was very cheap. I think everyone agreed that if we had specialized component teams, one iOS team, one squat team, that would have been very difficult and costly to switch them over onto this, or just impossible, and we would have just had to deal with this goal taking a lot longer. Any questions on this before I move on? All right, cool. Okay, so then we have a currently we just started an experiment. So after reading The 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is an awesome book, I totally suggest checking that out. It basically there was like this story in the book where, like, after Hurricane Katrina, there was like this high school football field in New Orleans or nearby, and this scoreboard had been knocked over. And what they observed was that, while the game was going on, like the crowd wasn't as animated. They were basically like just talking. All you could hear was conversation as the plays were going on. And the person believed that it was because the scoreboard had been knocked over. So you could see a scoreboard here. It had actually been knocked over. It was non-functional. Nobody knew what the score was in the stands throughout the whole game, right? So one of the experiments that we're running is creating an OKR scoreboard to review at the sprint review. I noticed someone in the pop quiz talked about what we're inspecting and adapting at the sprint review, which is the product goal. And an OKR in my mind is like a product goal, or there's a product goal within the OKR, however they write it. And what this book talks about, the 4 disciplines of execution, is that you want to have a scoreboard with leading indicators, like the score for the game. Like, are we getting closer to our goal? So like, how many orgs have we migrated to our application, or how many EHR orgs, right? And so we're constantly looking at that data and like, how far are we, how close are we getting, right? So hopefully that's going to like energize the team and help us achieve that OKR sooner and faster. All right, so for the LeSS events, experimenting with the LeSS events, we're going to go into that. So I'm going to reopen this Miro and zoom in right here. This is kind of a diagram that I put together. It was a proposal for scaling our Scrum events at Deep Scribe. So that's kind of how I pitched it. with like a diagram. Now you're going to notice that the names here don't actually match. Like joint product backlog refinement, unless we call it multi-team product backlog refinement. It's like LeSS is like Fight Club. If you've ever seen that movie, you don't talk about Fight Club. That's that's like the rule. A lot of when people go into organizations and they start talking about LeSS and frameworks and stuff like that, there's usually going to be some pushback, right? So covering your tracks a little bit can help. I mean, you can use the LeSS of events. That's fine, but I try not to talk about LeSS as much as the goals, like the optimization goals, which we previously agreed on before I even talked about any of the LeSS events. Is like, what are we trying to optimize for, right? Organizational adaptiveness, whole product focus. So, okay, well, if that's what we want to optimize for, then let's try these events out, right? So joint product backlog refinement, joint sprint planning, joint sprint review. The teams do their sprint planning separately after the joint sprint planning, also known as sprint planning 1, sprint planning 2, and LeSS. And then, of course, the teams have their own sprint team level retrospectives, and then we have a joint retrospective to wrap it all up. Any questions about the structure of the LeSS events that we're trying out at DeepScribe before I go into some of the feedback?
David, I got one real quick. Maybe it will also make others think. And by the way, folks, it's good if you just ask a question as opposed to typing. This way, David can answer live as opposed to juggling between his presentation and the chat window. So, David, my question is this. I think you did mention about the overall retrospective. Have you bubbled up anything at any point to the, to the management, organizational management level, such as, things that you might have seen, might have heard that were systemic, problematic at the org levels?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, let me kind of give you an example of that. So one of the issues was that we were like half of our we were like we're not making a whole lot of progress, and one of the why are we struggling with the same sprint goal sprint after sprint? And in the team level retrospective, it was like, well, we have a lot of bugs right now, right? So the number of bugs worked each sprint has a opposite effect on velocity toward milestones, right? Because it's like, well, if we're working on bugs, we're not working on new stories. Right. So I took them through this brainstorming workshop, right? And the teams actually, in this workshop that I held in the joint retrospective, the teams, basically came up with their reasons for why we have QA issues or quality issues, right, with our development process. And then I asked them to group them. So they came up with these groupings, and they kind of moved their sticky notes together. And we had product and business there at the joint retrospective. We took a good look at this and had some good conversations. We did some systems thinking, and it's kind of messy, but and I'm not like super great at system modeling, but I tried to like kind of model out what they were talking about a little bit in my own flavor of it. And some of like the some of the takeaways, the action items were teams spending time each sprint using the Scribe web app that the medical scribes that they're building this medical scribe app out, or the version 2 of it, and actually going through the workflow and checking the notes that the AI produces, and there's like a 3-step workflow and stuff like that. That uncovered some bugs, and also helped us prevent more bugs in the future. Also, we identified that we needed a UX designer. We got a UX designer hired to kind of help identify reusable components. And that's had a huge effect. The last 3 sprints, we've had, I think, a total of one bug. So it went from half of our sprint being bugs, like 10 to 15 items in our sprint backlog being critical and high bugs. So now we only have like maybe 1 bug per sprint, and it's like a medium or something like that. So,
Thank
and
you for that.
also,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll keep it moving though, because I see I only have 15 minutes left. Oh, and I'll just highlight, since you brought up joint retrospective, this is what our joint retrospective board looks like. So I created this Kanban board to help us know or help collect, like, what are the issues that the teams are bringing up, or that they literally just brought up in their team level retrospective. And, so I populate those here, and then I drag it into discussion. We discuss it. And then anything that is still in progress, will stay between, this joint retro and the next one. It stays in progress until we feel like we've come up with a solution for it. How do you know if there's a solution for it? You see these yellow kind of solutioning ideas or experiments that we've are trying or have tried to address the problem, right? So I kind of archive what those are, and just so that if we ever feel like, hey, what is this meeting for again? Oh yeah, we've been fixing the issues that we keep running into with the team. So yeah. Okay, cool. I'm gonna keep it moving though. Where was I? Oh yeah, so I was right here. So we went over the LeSS events, kind of how we're approaching that. Now I'm going to go over feedback from the teams. So I have this in a Google form here. I also put this into the Lucid chart there, but I'll kind of let you review or kind of look at. I'll spend like a few seconds on each of these. So some good feedback, some area for improvement around our effectiveness of Scrum. Rating the current effectiveness of each of the Scrum events and other team activities. So we have like a cross team sync. It's 5 minutes long before the daily scrums, and we basically use it as a communication point about anything that's coming up for the day, and also wrangling bugs. So it just means like getting bugs assigned to people that come up, although haven't really been utilizing it very much, like I said. Daily scrum, again, purple is really good or excellent. Green is very good, and so on and so forth. Sprint planning process seems to be working well for the teams. And again, this was taken by the engineers. Our sprint review got some feedback where we need to work on that. And I think that OKR scoreboard experiment will make it more engaging, more interesting for people. But we'll keep iterating on that. The sprint retrospective, team level, and joint got fairly good reviews. I think hopefully this will start to increase over time as our organizational issues actually get resolved, and instead of talking about them, for multiple sprints. So I think that can be increased by more stakeholders joining that meeting and kind of engaging with what the teams are seeing. Product backlog refinement was our area that we really needed to focus on the most, according to the engineers. Some of the feedback was that we're estimating the stories, but we really haven't proposed any designs. There's a lot of questions about like how we would even implement something like that, and then we're being asked to commit to these sprinkles and product goals, and it's it's still too nebulous, right? So we also, and I'll get into some of the ideas that current experiments that we have running to address that in a second here. Also, we have a 3 Amigos process. So when we do have product backlog refinement, if there's something that's too complex, we can kick it off to like a 3 Amigos, or we get someone from product or a customer, preferably, a developer and a QA. We don't have QAs, but we do have developers that can put that that hat on for the meeting, and they kind of help break the story down into smaller user stories and flesh out the acceptance criteria, and then we bring it back to the product backlog refinement for the whole team to review and estimate and put into the product backlog for to pick up in the next sprint or whatever. Then we've also kind of started something called a project kickoff meeting. It's essentially just looking at like, okay, we want to move 100% of the orgs, EHR orgs to the squap, right? And all of that work. This is to address the product backlog refinement issue here. Essentially, is to like do a bit of a deeper dive, allow the engineers to kind of like model out what it is that they want to build, how they might do it, get into the the user stories a bit deeper, split them out. In my opinion, this is product backlog refinement. This is product. It's just an activity that you do in product backlog refinement. But I didn't want to confuse people, so I allowed them to kind of vote on this separately. So that's getting some good feedback. So hopefully, because we just started this, literally just started this, I don't think we've seen the effects here yet, and hopefully this should start to go up. We have some feedback from the teams. And then I asked, do you think it's a good practice to have a sprint, to agree on a sprint goal each sprint, even if we're not able to achieve a major milestone? Most people feel that is helpful, right? How am I doing as your Scrum Master? I provided a example Scrum Master checklist from Michael James, who runs Seattle Scrum. And then any feedback that they wanted to give me. And then also there's, been like talk, what should we, from certain stakeholders that like, maybe newer to Scrum, maybe the project management feels a little bit more natural for them. So I wanted to ask the teams, like, do you prefer the meeting cadence of Scrum, or would you rather have scheduled ad hoc, project meetings type of thing? And I was glad to hear that the majority of the engineers do prefer the meeting cadence of Scrum. So, but I mean, could go either way. So, and then I asked, do you feel like your team has locked up potential at all, or held back from doing their best in any way? Right? Maybe the answer is Scrum. It's holding us back. I wanted to kind of know and get like a feel, like, do people like appreciate the framework, or is there other things holding them back? And essentially, what a couple of the feedback items was not having a good shared understanding of the work to be done, needing better coordination and planning, shared understanding of goals. At the same time, meetings often get in the way of large chunks of productive time. I'm sure you've heard that one before. So I want to flip over this. I put all this feedback into this right here. So we had a brainstorming session at the last joint retrospective, and we talked about kind of some of the things that we want to do to address these issues. And so that's kind of what we're working on this sprint is determining which stories need 3 amigos even before it gets to refinement, perhaps at the project kickoff meeting, project epic, whatever you want to call it. But needed a process for creating design proposals. So hopefully we'll have someone who can draft up a proposal, and just fleshing out stories. I think it's a bit redundant, but I was just kind of trying to capture the notes in the moment. But so yeah, I think it's good to have these kind of surveys going around and get the information from the teams. All right, so we just did that one. Community as a practice, and then that's it. So I'm going to try and wrap this up in 5 minutes. So we'll go back to this chart over here. At our last DevCon event, which is just like this like thing where we fly everybody out to San Francisco. We're a remote first company, by the way. If you are considering working at DeepScribe, we're a remote first company, but we do try and get people together once every quarter, and for engineers, and we talk about development stuff, right? They kind of teach back to each other. Maybe someone wants to do a presentation on React design patterns. Maybe someone else wants to do something on logging and like this and that, and tie it back to our work. I gave a presentation on communities of practice. So kind of, I had like a deck, but I pulled some of the images here, kind of what it is, what's the background of COPs, stages of development, why do it, how to do it. some examples of vision statements, and then I kind of just let them go crazy and say, all right, so like let's just brainstorm what are some good communities of practice that you would like to see, you know, in order to like create you know, best practices or standards across the feature teams, because we're scaling up. We're gonna have 4 teams soon for engineering and 3 for AI and all that. And you know, a mixed team, and it's going to be either we can go down the path of having component managers and they manage the component and they tell everybody what's the standard, or we can have communities of practice and component mentorship, right? That's what Les talks about. And so these are the ones that we came up with, or the teams came up with. So they came in here, they typed these in and kind of figured that out. Right now we decided to kick off just 2 for now, which is React design and CI/CD. So this one and this one right here. So this board is a little bit incomplete, but so they're going to craft a vision, mission statement, what their goals are, rationalize how that ties back to the OKRs and our business objectives, and you know, figure out, you know, attract people to their community and come up with a cadence, you know, decide when they're going to meet. So it's all completely up to them. It's all volunteer based. So this is how we're scaling at DeepScribe, is the LeSS events, the communities of practice. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions about communities of practice or component mentorship?
There's one question though from Elena in the queue. David, after this one, you can pick that one up
Sure.
if you want.
Elena,
Yeah.
did you?
Elena, did you? Yeah, go ahead. I guess she felt more comfortable typing it. It's about synchronizing Scrum cadence across the teams, or the teams using their own. I guess it's just a, you know, basic less
Yep.
question. Yeah, so feel free to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so we're all the teams are on the same cadence. The AI teams, the Scrum teams, or I'll just go back to this one. So yeah, all of these teams are on the same cadence.
Same sprint, right? Same sprint, same backlog, same product owner. So
Yep. Absolutely. We got a couple minutes left. Any other questions about anything I went over?
Folks, go ahead. This is the time. It's best to ask questions live.
What is product development structure?
Oh, I was.
Yeah,
Go
so we have one product owner. It was the CEO, but we brought the manager of Scribe Ops over to fill in this role. So she, in my opinion, she has full authority over the product backlog, the ordering of it, and everything. There are other types of like product manager folks from different departments in the organization, but they don't reorder the backlog. This is the only person who has authority to reorder the backlog, and she does an awesome job. I'm so like blessed to have her. She's so good at her job.
Thank you for that one.
Everyone, may I ask question?
Yes, please.
Please.
Thank you. So here we have, I see product development structure. How about OKR? How it is linked to product backlog?
Yeah, absolutely. So our OKRs for the product and engineering, these actually tie up to higher level OKRs, which I don't have on the slide, but essentially at the top of our product backlog are the stories that revolve around adopting EHR orgs to our Scribe web app, this key result here. So all of the user stories that relate to this are at the top of the product backlog. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes. Any other questions?
Dave, this is Vadim. I got a question. In many cases, it's very difficult to make like one-on-one relationship between OKR and some kind of epic in your backlog, right? How you would deal with these cases when it's not linear at all?
So the items in your product backlog, whether it's an epic, feature, user story, are they're activities really from an OKR perspective. I'm going to build this thing. I think it's going to improve this key result, this measurable key result, right? So those activities should be debated about what is going to move the needle the most, right? And through that debate, with the product owner and the stakeholders, comes an ordered list. Can you tell me more about a challenge or maybe a nuance to the question that it's not that simple for you? I'm guessing.
Especially NFRs, let's say, good example, we need to move away from Oracle database to Mango database, right? And what kind of OKRs I can link to this? And it's a big project, right? and we know, there are certain, list of reasons why we need to do it. Right, so it's not even negotiable, right? How you would do it in OKR?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. The way I would approach that is coaching the product team with the product and engineering to have balancing key results that balance each other out, right? So like and essentially, like, when you write the objective, it's like, let's say you want to have an objective to get to your destination, right? As soon as possible or by this date. I need to drive at a certain speed, but I also need to stay within the lines of the road. I can't veer off the road because I'm going so fast, right? Or break the speed limit and get a ticket, right? So you have to have so in that example, very simple example, I've got a speed key result and like I've got like a stay in the lines and follow, follow the speed limit key result. Otherwise, I might not get to where I need to go. So that's just an idea. If other people have ideas about how to integrate very important component upgrade work into the scope of what kind of activities need to be done to achieve a key result, I'd love to hear others' ideas.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Good. You like that? Was that helpful? Okay. Cool.
Yes, it was helpful. Yes, appreciate it. I got this kind of questions even during interviews, right? So it's important to hear from somebody like you, how you would answer this question. Thank you.
It's a good one. Thank you, Vadim. Any other questions?
I'm wondering
after you.
David, it's Elena. I'm wondering about team self-selection process. Have you tried when you form the team? Is it any team self-selection process you choose?
Yeah. So that's where, like, once we chose our kind of like strategy for onboarding, I created these empty spaces. They just said team member, team member, team member, team member. And the team members then moved their sticky note, which is what they're using to vote with. I said, okay, if we're going to go with this one, go ahead and move your name onto one of the teams that you'd like to be on. And then there was like some hesitation, and then they all started moving over, like, ooh, like Tucker and Joel wanted to be together, and Aaron and Rodrigo wanted to be together.
And how you deal with tech leads or engineering managers' influence? how you work with them to agree on the team self-selection process?
So I actually kind of met with him beforehand and asked for if he supported this. Like I showed him the workshop that I put together. And honestly, I wouldn't have, because I report to this person too, I wouldn't have even joined this company if I didn't trust that he had the mindset of allowing teams to self-organize.
But
I wouldn't have
after
even.
they self-organized, how are they taking this decision as a done deal, or they can influence or say or veto the team's decision?
Yeah, so like we just had at the end of July when we all went to San Francisco for our last DevCon event, we did ask the teams if they were balanced, and they decided that they wanted to, one person move over to this team and another person go to the other team. So it was totally their decision.
Good, thank you.
But I want to underscore, I would never go and work for a manager who didn't support self-organization teams. So choose your organization wisely. makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah, folks, we got a few minutes past the hour usually. Just want to make sure we are mindful of others that did not want to miss that, and also the speaker it's Saturday after all. So ask another question if you have anything like it's on your mind. Otherwise, perhaps we can wrap this up. Hey, David, first of all, thank you so much for this question. I'm sorry, for this presentation. There was a question also. You just answered. I'm sorry, that was a LinkedIn. This mirror board, I assume this is something that has your private information, but it's some great configuration options there. Is it something you could either, if not share as is, maybe some screenshots or some ideas? Is it something you could do?
Yeah. I could definitely share some screenshots. I might go through it and make sure there's nothing.
Yeah, could you do me a favor? I'm not sure if the whole board is something you need to share, but maybe a bunch of screenshots. And also, if you want to give me a very short outline, this is logistics, just maybe a couple of bullets, what you have covered in the presentation along with the Prezzo, shoot it over to me sometime today, tomorrow, and I'll make it available to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Yeah. Yep, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much for doing this. This is great. This a lot of rich experience, and appreciate you sharing candidly your company's journey. I'm going to be also, the recording will be available, so if people wish to replay and maybe go slow, they can do so. So yeah, I really personally want to thank you and say hello to some of the colleagues of yours that I know. It's been a great support all along. Oh, you keep mentioning my name, but it's a community thing. So, I don't want to be a centerpiece of this, but thank you again. Folks, I pinged in a chat also the link to the meetup. Of course, you know it because you're here. The upcoming events, Craig Larman's workshop, and the and the link where David's presentation will be on. So I want to thank you all for joining. Yeah, enjoy the weekend. Whatever's left of the summer, and hopefully we will all see each other at the next event. Okay, and thanks again, David. Thanks to you.
Thank you.
We're gonna stop
Presentation,
recording at this
David.
point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.